Welcome to the New Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today, continuing our series on IEEE, blockchain, and AI, related again to cybersecurity. Your host, Christopher Gorog, today, and our guest we're bringing on to talk about this topic has some deep experience in the area, Orlando Lopez, who as a Ph.D. and a certified project manager, works for the National Institute of Health and the Department of Health and Human Services. Got his Ph.D. at the Mayo Clinic, and for quite a few years worked with the FDA, medical devices, in the medical device innovation space. Orlando, welcome today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Definitely look forward to this chat. Orlando, give us your background. I mean, you started out somewhere, and you have quite an extensive kind of history here. But how did you get your start? What were your interests that led to you diving in the direction you did?
So it's been an interesting ride so far. Very non-linear, unexpected path, very non-traditional, especially for someone in the PhD sort of space, and maybe not so much right now for early stage, graduate students. But back when I was in graduate school, the traditional path was either to become a academic researcher or go into industry. So I decided to take a bit of a different path. They called it alternative path at that point. And so I I went into biomedical engineering early on, both as an undergrad and graduate student. And I was really very excited and very passionate about the application of engineering principles to address medical issues. And it was either that or going into like orthopedic medicine. And so it kind of became, obvious to me, especially at the graduate student level, that I was more passionate about the technology development side of things. So I did research and development for some time. By training, I specialized in medical imaging, especially around magnetic resonance imaging, a number of different modalities. And it was really interesting to apply, the different imaging technologies to a number of different medical problems and also preclinical development. So that really gave me a really exciting opportunity to get involved with a number of different clinical specialties like orthopedics, cardiovascular, dental, and then that kind of transitioned me to a number of different opportunities, both at the postdoctoral level at NIH, where I conducted some more specialized work in doing a high magnet MRI for animal studies. And then I became very interested about the business of science. And so I did some courses on technology transfer, and then that's kind of really opened my eyes to some of the opportunities and the significant issues that, are needed to be carried out to actually bring new innovation to market. I became aware of the FDA. I really, as a graduate student, didn't really know a whole lot about that. And then I learned that it was a, really crucial part of the path of the pipeline, to get products to market. So I started, looking into it, and I was very fortunate that early on in my career, there was a new opportunity that came on at the FDA. It was a special type of fellowship that was intended to train scientists and medical professionals into the realm of the policy regulatory aspects of bringing products to market. So I went into FDA as a commissioner's fellow for 2 years, and I really learned, the ins and outs of medical device regulation, medical product regulation. And I was fortunate to stay on as a medical device reviewer, a lead reviewer at the Division for Cardiovascular Devices. And I was leading a number of the different technologies around digital diagnostics, and that was sort of the initial wave of a lot of digital health products. So I was very involved in the reviews, leading a lot of the reviews for a number of different technologies, and at some point, everything seemed to be wanting to be have some sort of wireless component. Everything just kind of went wireless for some reason, as we know, and here we are. So that was the really early stages of my introduction to a lot of these technologies, and imaging technology being a digital form of platforms in many aspects really helped me solidify my background both in the hardware and computational aspects to bring that to bear of this new wave of technologies. So I stayed on at FDA and really got exposed to a wide range of technologies, and it's really exciting to see some of those in the market now. But then I was fortunate to transition to back to NIH, where I am currently. I've been there for about 5 years. And I had the opportunity to dive into the dental space. So I'm at the National Institute for Dental and Craniofacial Research, where I lead a technology development portfolio around materials development. Also, those materials get functionalized into new biosensing technologies that eventually become sensors, IoT type of wearable technologies that could help functionalize and detect a number of different biomarkers and parameters within the oral cavity. And the goal there is to be able to detect, monitor, diagnose, and help assess oral health, but also as an opportunity to access the oral cavity. We are able to also gain insights into the rest of the body, and so start making correlations between oral health and the rest of the body, the overall health. There is also a lot of opportunities for doing.
Take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back in a minute.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to NewCyberFrontier. On today with Orlando Lopez, and he was going through his background and with the NIH, and we'll let you kind of finish where you're at now, what you do, and I want to unpack some of that IoT and the medical devices. Go ahead, finish your background there.
Sure. Thank you. So I've been, again, very involved in leading a number of initiatives around the development of new biosensing technologies that can get functionalized to leverage the accessibility of the oral cavity to the rest of the body, so that we can, capture, very rich sets of information about health and disease, and be able to take that into the context of diagnostics as well as therapeutics and monitoring, patients across the board. Also, we're very involved in leading a number of other digital technologies, especially in the context of digital dentistry. So merging the imaging or a number of different digital information that can be really put together in the context of potentially like digital twins, that can represent a patient's health status or disease status, but to be able to really capture a profile of the patient, and then take that information and apply other types of intelligence system capabilities to help therapeutic planning, and also like surgical navigation systems, and bringing together additional fabrication technologies like additive manufacturing and other advanced fabrication methods like stereolithography with optimized materials that can then help enable the production of personalized devices that can, be used, in the operating table or at the chair side, which is sort of the setting for dentistry. So, we're really bringing together all these different technologies to bear and to improve overall patient care.
Yeah. So the big interesting thing I hear is how much the government programs are involved with this. When you usually think of the onset of technology and innovation as a commercial thing, how is that role of the government and companies? How do you work together? Where does that line between what's the government, what's the companies? How does that settle?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So also as another hat, so I wear a number of hats within my agency, and one of my hats is serving as the coordinator for our small business program. And so in reality, the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, is the biggest investor in biomedical research in the world. Our budget is over $30 billion a year, and roughly, well, actually about 80% of that goes out to fund academic and small business research and development, across the board. So we are very involved, in the early stage innovation, from the very early basic research and discovery across the pipeline, to the translational sciences and the applied sciences that actually make it into new innovations. And the hope is to translate all those to human use. And there is, of course, the pipeline that goes into the regulatory side of things in order to get products to market. So my background with the regulatory aspects, to medical device development, really comes to bear on a daily basis to really help guide and advise new innovators, that actually are looking to bring new products to market.
So with the investment that you said that you make into small business startup research, the government doesn't own any of those. It's just like grants and programs to spar innovation to have that technology for patient care, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we fund, a number of different grants, opportunity grants, contracts, and also there's a significant amount of investment in workforce development in terms of training and career development. From like very early stages, even like high school level. We really want to create the incentivize the pipeline of the workforce, that is very much needed, to be able to keep us, on the cutting edge of innovation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So now, if you look at that stack and where does cybersecurity and privacy fit in? Where do you address that? At what points? What levels? How does that touch your kind of scope?
Yeah, well, the opportunities for cybersecurity, it really come across the board, across the entire pipeline, from very basic research all the way through the translational and the clinical research. And then, of course, once products get to market, in the commercial side of things, there's a number of different considerations there. But early stages of life science research, of course, really are critical, to protect a lot of the intellectual property that comes to bear, when these products are at the early stages of discovery and design and R&D. But also in the context of a number of the different living organisms, animal models, and then human subjects that are part of this life science research pipeline. So really, it really comes to play in a number of different aspects, in the pipeline. And I think, of course, now we're at an inflection point in this a number of these different technologies, and really being able to leverage a lot of this digital infrastructure. So there is, of course, a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges for cybersecurity. There's a lot of threats, ongoing, and being part of the government, I don't really have to deal with that, but I know that our CIOs are very much involved and engaged on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think we just had your CIO on a couple weeks ago. He might air before or after you, but we definitely have just talked to him. Let's take a break, though. We got to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back in a minute.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today, talking to Orlando Lopez, a Ph.D. who has works with the Health and Human Services in the National Institute of Health in the pipeline for new products, new development. IoT device is a big thing. I was surprised how much your connection was with that. But now when we look at kind of our pretense for the show was connecting security using blockchain, AI, and the newer developments and possibilities. Where do you see that connection coming in with blockchain and AI in the medical industry for all the things in your scope?
Yeah, well, really, I think, the way that things are moving in the medical industry and the healthcare space in general, down to patient care, is really to maximize and enable value-based care, right? As opposed to just doing fee-for-service type of care. And so the digital infrastructures that are currently emerging in terms of blockchain and AI capabilities, I think are really at the forefront of enabling that value-based care by really cutting down a lot of inefficiencies. I think I don't recall the exact number, but I think it's something like 25% of the multi-trillion-dollar cost of healthcare right now really goes to waste in terms of inefficiencies, both from the operational level and then also the lack of accessibility to information and to data sharing, across the different silos. So it is very much a siloed industry, and then enabling data sharing in a way that it's governed, and managed appropriately. I think it's really the most enabling capabilities that blockchain and AI bring to bear. So governance, security, auditability, and traceability really, I think, are at the forefront of these technologies. But also, being digital technologies enable significant capabilities for computational power. And so being able to not only share data, but actually be able to manage, process, and interpret the data, especially in the huge data sets that are emerging from across the board. And so if you can imagine the types of the loads of data that actually get accumulated during the process of life science research, to actually be able to that's why it's called research, because you just have to keep searching. And so to get to a point where you get a final product, out to market, that product has been optimized, significantly through a number of different experimental, processes and procedures. So the loads of data that are emerging from the life science research activities is significant. And, the capabilities of AI, machine learning, deep learning, really enable us to do something with that data. There's a lot of issues with legacy data that prior to the boom of AI becoming more commonplace. So there's a lot of legacy data that in some cases now makes it very difficult to use. But now we are at a point where we really need to understand that data structuring, data engineering is very important to maximize the value of these technologies, AI and machine learning. And so, the better that we can structure these data flows and understand the life cycle of data, and then incorporate different elements of blockchain and AI into that pipeline, will really help advance, all the efficiencies that are needed to bring products to market in a way that is robust, safe, effective, but also with quality in mind. I think the quality is really important across the pipeline. There's an old mantra in engineering, garbage in, garbage out, right? And so, of course, I mean, these are very promising technologies, but we need to keep in mind that there is significant challenge and significant scrutiny that needs to take place to make sure that these platforms perform in the way that they're intended to. So there's a lot of effort that is needed to go into the verification and validation of their performance. And especially with the ability for really like deep learning, more advanced tools, they are continuously learning, and so the targets in a way could drift, and then we may get to a point where we don't really understand what the outputs are going to be. So to be able to keep up with that aspect and quality, we need to make sure that there is iterative design, iterative optimization, iterative checkpoints across the pipeline to ensure that the outputs from these platforms are reliable. Another perspective, I think, in terms of the cybersecurity issue that is definitely I think a main interest for the audience here is that these platforms are really, I think, significant enablers for risk mitigation. And so, you can combine them and converge, a lot of these technologies, and that's kind of where we're getting to now. But being able to mitigate risk, both identify risks and then analyze and evaluate the risk to come up with robust mitigation strategies across the board, I think is an incredibly important value added of these platforms.
Interesting. So when we talk about silos and kind of breaking down, adding communication capability as a big function of this, do you see that as between companies and other companies, different research institutions, or mostly between the government and the companies? Where do you see the most value there? Because I know a lot of times companies don't want to share with other companies, and that might be a hindrance. But where do you see that value coming in for that breaking silos and sharing across boundaries?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a very interesting question. And I'm actually one of the leads for one of the IEEE standard subgroups on interoperability of clinical IoT, and with TIPS, which stands for Trust, Identity Protection, Privacy, Security, Safety. And so the interoperability aspect, across data, but also across systems and across governance structures, is really critical. And so we have a number of different concerns, of course, to be able to interoperate all these different aspects to make the most out of the data is really important. So there is considerations to have both private and public infrastructures, when it comes to blockchain, but also, context of or potential solutions that could enable infrastructure for federated learning, where we could have different configurations where the data is not necessarily going anywhere, but we'll be sharing the capability to analyze and crunch that data, right? So de-identifying the data that I think are important implications, to the de-identification of data, especially in the context of clinical research, patient care. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but I think the interoperability of data and systems is really, I think, at the cornerstone of enabling and maximizing the value of these technologies. But there is the people element that really also need to come to play. So we need to build in incentives to these organizations, both at the private and public level, to be able to come together to develop functional governance structures that are able to enhance and maximize and enable, of course, the sharing of data across the board, while the different stakeholders are able to retain some ownership or the value of the contributions. I think that that's also an important consideration here. The shifting in who owns the data and who is going to be able to access that data and what the data is going to be doing in the future.
It's interesting you talked about the de-emphasis, or I forget what you called it, but taking the individualized content out of the data and making the stuff, the parts of the data that is uniform across the different entities visible. Expand on that and say, explain what that means in your scope. What, if you're developing standards, would it be, hey, here's a set of information. If we take this out, we leave the rest in, we have information that everybody can use, but it doesn't tell you who they are or what they're doing. Explain that a little bit.
Sure. So an example, now that is very much at play is the concept of dynamic consent for patient data. So, maybe you go to the doctor or you went to the doctor like 10, 20 years ago. You might get a form that says, okay, would you like your data to be used for clinical research purposes? And so you say yes, okay, then that's pretty much it. You don't really know anything about how your data is going to be used in the future, right? But now the concept of dynamic consent will be something that if the patient will be able to actually have ownership of their data and be able to consent as to how that data is going to be used, who's going to be able to access that, for how long, and in what manner, and then also what's going to happen to that data. So, the blockchain and AI infrastructures will enable a person or an entity to be able to really set the rules, as to how that data is going to be used, and also maybe to get attribution to the contribution of that data. That is also the case for scientific research. So if researchers are able to share data and contribute data to repositories or new data databases, to be able to get attribution to the contributions of that data, in journal publications, peer review, patents, and of course the protection for intellectual properties is very important. So there's a number of different opportunities, challenges there, but I think the capabilities that these platforms bring to bear is really significant, and we're only, I think, scratching the surface at this point on what's coming. So it's a very exciting inflection point, to be in, especially in this space right now.
Yeah, interesting. Well, kind of as we move towards the close here, anything that you need help with? I know you're the IEEE group. If you need participation there or whatever, kind of give a shout out to people in our audience might join, how they could get a hold of you, and what types of people you need to reach out.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, and definitely, of course, we always need great minds to to come together and crack some of these complex issues. So some of the work that I'm involved with the IEEE in terms of the standards development is the P2933 standard on tips and clinical IoT. And, folks are able to reach me through my LinkedIn, Orlando Lopez. Definitely happy to and welcome, anybody that's willing to contribute to the effort. We have a number of different subgroups. Right now, we have been, this particular IEEE initiative has been going on for a little over a year. And we have, it's a global effort. So folks, come together from across the board to really understand a lot of the, security, identity, privacy, protection issues. And, definitely the more mental power, mind power that we have to come together. And of course, to break the barriers and understanding how we can resolve a lot of these interoperability issues is very important.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Orlando. And you heard it here today on New Cyber Frontier.
Great. But now the concept of dynamic consent will be something that if the patient will be able to actually have ownership of their data and be able to consent as to how that data is going to be used, who's going to be able to access that, for how long, and in what manner, and then also what's going to happen to that data. So, the blockchain and AI infrastructures will enable a person or an entity to be able to really set the rules, as to how that data is going to be used, and also maybe to get attribution to the contribution of that data. That is also the case for scientific research. So if researchers are able to share data and contribute data to repositories or new data databases, to be able to get attribution to the contributions of that data, in journal publications, peer review, patents, and of course, the protection for intellectual properties is very important. So there's a number of different opportunities, challenges there, but I think the capabilities that these platforms bring to bear is really significant, and we're only, I think, scratching the surface at this point on what's coming. So it's a very exciting inflection point, to be in, especially in this space right now.
Yeah, interesting. Well, kind of as we move towards the close here, anything that you need help with? I know you're the IEEE group. If you need participation there or whatever, kind of give a shout out to people in our audience might join, how they could get a hold of you, and what types of people you need to reach out.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, and definitely, of course, we always need great minds to to come together and crack some of these complex issues. So some of the work that I'm involved with the IEEE in terms of the standards development is the P2933 standard on tips in clinical IoT. And, folks are able to reach me through my LinkedIn, Orlando Lopez. Definitely happy to and welcome, anybody that's willing to contribute to the effort. We have a number of different subgroups. Right now, we have been, this particular IEEE initiative has been going on for a little over a year. And we have, it's a global effort. So folks, come together from across the board to really understand a lot of the, security, identity, privacy, protection issues. And, definitely the more mental power, mind power that we have to come together. And of course, to break the barriers and understanding how we can resolve a lot of these interoperability issues is very important.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Orlando. And you heard it here today on New Cyber Frontier.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at NewCyberFrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.